Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. A quick housekeeping note, we are recording this session, so if you are uncomfortable for any reason, please feel free to drop now. Next. My name is Phil, and I'm joined by my colleagues Merri and Karthik. We're thrilled to have so many senior finance leaders with us today. Our topic, unlocking efficiency in finance, quick wins with generative AI. Over the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll share how generative AI can help you and your teams reduce or even eliminate low and non-value activities in your finance operations. We'll keep things practical, actionable, and focused on real-world examples you can start using right away. But first, a little bit about TEK. So who is TEK? We are a boutique strategic business management consulting and digital transformation practice. We were founded 13 years ago with headquarters in the suburbs of Chicago, with nearshore and offshore offices in Costa Rica, Canada, and India. Our small leadership team are all former technology and industry leaders with experience in the data and analytics space of over 100 years combined. Our specialties include data, analytics, planning, AI, ML, ERP, and digital supply chain. And we are also SAP, Databricks, Microsoft, and AWS partners. So, what challenges face finance leaders? Let's start with the pain points. As finance leaders, you know your teams often spend countless hours on manual data entry, reconciliations, chasing down supporting documents, and compiling reports. These tasks are critically important, but they don't directly drive direct business value. In fact, studies show that finance professionals often spend up to 50% of their time on low and no value activities. That time could be redirected to analysis, strategic planning, or even business partnering if we could only figure out a way to automate or streamline these repetitive processes and workflows. That's where Gen AI comes in. Unlike traditional automation, it can understand, generate, and even explain financial data in ways that was never, ever possible before. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Merri to talk about what is Gen AI and how does it work.
Hello, everyone. Let's clarify what we mean about generative AI. I think it will be helpful as we go forward in this conversation. In simple terms, I think we've all heard about it, right? But in simple terms, generative AI refers to algorithms that can create new content, whether it be text, images, and even code, right? It's all based on patterns that it learns from existing data. You've probably tried out various and sundry generative AI tools with, mixed results. But what you may have observed is these examples that we've tried in Gen AI help us understand that it gives the illusion that Gen AI is actually thinking and writing like a human. But how does that work behind the scenes or under the hood? Let's break it down in some simple terms. It's all based on probability and math. So in simple terms, generative AI models are trained on vast amount of text. Basically, the entirety of the internet is what most of us have heard, right? But think about books, articles, whatever's out there, websites, and more. And the model, through that training, learns patterns and grammar, and even the typical phrases that we as people use in various contexts. So it learns these patterns, and when you give it a prompt, like summarize this financial report, it analyzes the words you have typed and looks for familiar patterns that it saw during training and looks for what follows. It doesn't just copy sentences. So it's not just a cut and paste sort of thing. It will generate new text by predicting what comes next, one word at a time. So what does that actually mean? How does it choose the right words based on what it's seen in the past? So here's a simple example for you. So suppose AI model that you're using has seen sentences like, the revenue increased by 10% this quarter due to higher sales. If you then go and prompt it to explain the quarterly results, it's going to look at what it's been trained on and look for similar phrases and then fill in the numbers and reasons for your data. But a lot of the words that it's going to choose are based on the patterns of the words that it's seen before. So it picks each word specifically, moves on to the next word and repeats. So the results sound natural and context aware, but it's all based on probability. So the implications then are, if you're asking it to do something that it hasn't been trained on or seen before, it's going to generate something that most of us refer to as a hallucination, right? Something that makes no sense. That's just because it hasn't been trained on it. And it's not good at saying, I don't know. Like a person would say, hey, I don't know. Haven't seen that before, don't know. So it's very important as you think about generative AI for some of the use cases that we're going to talk about in a minute, that you also think about how do you train it on the lingo and the situations that your business encounters on a routine basis. That's where it excels, on helping us with those very repetitive processes that are highly predictable so that it can choose the right words, fill in the blanks. So in short, it combines what it's learned from millions of examples with math, specifically probability, to generate content that sounds something like you would write, but tailored to your specific situation. So with that kind of background in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Karthik to talk about some use cases that you may want to take a look at for your organization.
Thanks, Mary and Phil. Um, so before going into our quick wins are some of the rapid use cases which you can deploy using generative AI. So as you know, we as a technology, everything is marching towards AI. Every technology stack is having some kind of complementary AI in their stack. At the same time, infusing AI into every single processes without no need may be a counterproductive option because it might even complicate the things. So within our customer base, now we try to implement Gen AI in multiple use cases, and we want to share what are some quick wins and easy to approach use cases within the financial FP&A process or no financial industry. Next slide. The first one is automated report generation. This might be a very classic day-to-day use case applicable for any kind of industry. So one of our manufacturing customer, they have their daily briefs of reports going to the executives with all the summaries and everything generated manually in a Word document or PDF documents. So what we did, so it was built completely on Databricks solution. So again, it's technology agnostic, meaning these use cases you can build on any technology stack. It's at the end of the day, it uses RAG model or LLM, some kind of LLM behind the scenes of our choice to generate this context with what Mary was explaining before. So the use case is every day the executives are getting a feed of automated reports with all the summaries of what happened on a DSOs, DPOs, all these KPI metrics. We trained, we created a RAG model and trained with the historical data, how the context can be generated, and explain the LLMs about each KPI, what is the context, what is the impact, and then create a solid knowledge base with the impact analysis, how each KPI correlates with the other KPI. Then the Gen AI, it's an agentic AI because the Gen AI will start creating summaries based on the data on a regular basis, and using agentic AI approach and APIs, it will trigger an email to executives every day. So the complete manual process, which used to take a couple of hours for a few team members, has been automated fully, where executives are now getting a fully AI infused summaries on the data. Next slide, please. Invoice reconciliation. This has been problem and for every financial accounting team in a typical FP&A financial process. So in fact, we ourselves as a vendors very often we see a accounting team questioning us, like, from our customers, like, hey, can you please match this invoice to which purchase order it belongs to, what are the hours, which project we are billing to, like, all this mapping and everything might be confusing as companies, like, as we um, complex supply chain, logistics kicks in, like, this invoice reconciliation will be more manual process. At the same time, it's more complicated process. So what we did, again, it's an agentic AI approach. So we have a entire purchase order data, completed supply chain management data out of our SAP systems and non-SAP systems, everything merged together into a lake house architecture, data lake architecture, and where the LLMs, in combination with even some kind of machine learning algorithms. So what I did, they exactly know which PO, which invoice needs to map to which particular purchase order, vendor reports, and everything. So whenever there's a new invoice processed, it exactly knows now how to match whether there's any discrepancies between the invoice and then purchase order, and what are the goods sold in that invoice order. And even using again agentic approach, like, in the before, in the one slide above, like, the previous use case, um, using the agentic AI approach, like, not only it detects the matches or discrepancies, it does the error handling, meaning, like, sending an email to appropriate team members, like, okay, this is the invoice which was wrongly billed, this is the invoice which was overbilled, like, everything, all this exception handling has been completely automated using the using this LLM. Next slide. So expense report review, as know, every corporation, every company, everything, every organization has its own policies of travel, or it comes to when it comes to, like, credit card usage, or, like, expense reimbursement. Um, HR team or accounting team right now, from consulting industry all the way to any kind of, like, financial sector, or any kind of, organization which has a frequent travel of these employees, like, the accounting team and the HR team rigorously go through these expense reports, match, like, okay, whether the expense is valid or not, whether it's under the budget, over the budget, or whether it needs any additional approvals. Everything has to be, it's a manual process. Now, with our new expense report review tool, and the LLM, exactly, the Gen AI engine exactly knows, like, okay, it scans the receipts, and then exactly know, okay, whether this is part of our corporate policy or not, because the LLM has been trained with our corporate policies, our expense policies, and everything. So when you scan the receipt, it exactly know where to book, whether it is above the approved limit or below the approved limit, and then if there's any additional approval needed. At the same time, even after approval is done, once you submit for the expenses, for the reimbursement, it detects any anomalies, and finally the entire workflow has been completely automated. Next slide. So budget and forecast summary. This again we implemented for one of our, automotive industry, where um, so as a controller or as a financial planner, so once the planning is done or the forecasting is done, one of the rigorous exercises is always doing the variance analysis, or understanding, like, what changed between my budget version and my actuals, what changed between my forecast version and then the rolling forecast next month version, and what are the drivers that is impacting this, change in margins, change in volumes, what is impacting to higher margins or lower margins. So very often, it requires to navigate through multiple reports, filtering out multiple dimensions to nail it down, to go to detailed level and check, like, okay, which exact driver is impacting, what is the reason behind it, and then recording that reason as a comment or something, and then sending it to auditors for approval. So all this goes as a part of your typical month ending process or a forecasting process, but it's a time consuming activity, and very often it requires a IT intervention. For example, if the accounting books, your ledger is not matching with your planning system, immediately the first step you do is, like, okay, why is it not matching with my accounting system? Then the IT needs to intervene and see, okay, here is your transaction system postings, these are the planning systems aggregation levels, and the data has not been loaded, or like there might be some data failures, or some allocation may not have not properly worked. So everything has to be done by an IT, which obviously, like, we are multiple teams involved, and it's a time lag, no time delay. With the LLM, with this new Gen AI technology, we can create knowledge base about our data, like what are the accounts, what are the allocation logics, what are the allocation rules, what are the billing documents and everything, how the aggregation works from planning system to accounting and ledger system. Once the LLM understands the business lingo and then business context, then all this reconciliation can be done by all this reconciliation will be done by LLMs. At the same time, not only it does the reconciliation process, it also gives you explanation of, why there is a variance. No, it not only gives, what was mismatching, it also gives why it is mismatching. Okay, if the volumes are higher, okay, that is impacting the total overall gross margin. If your cost codes of certain cost elements have been came down, that is impacting the gross margin. So it does all the work based upon the previous historical variance analysis reports and also your business language. Like I was explaining in our quick wins slides, all these use cases are LLM use cases. They are pretty much technology agnostic, meaning you can build it on any data lake solutions or any kind of data breaks or any OpenStack technology. It's not confined to one particular technology. So the first one I want to show is FP&A Assist. So this particular use case is mainly intended for financial controllers at the time of month end close. So very often we see controllers when they are closing the books, they want to see, okay, hey, why my accounting system is not matching with the planning system? Hey, the data has been loaded successfully as per the logs, but still I'm seeing a variance between my revenue and my cost accounts, between whatever I'm seeing in my ledger is not exactly matching with my planning system. So how do what do you do about it? How can I go and debug? So most of the times you go into your gross margin reports, filter each and each account, and then go account by account, and see which account has a discrepancy, and then drill deeper, dig deeper into that particular account, and finally find okay, whatever account is causing an issue, and then you go to IT, or you raise a ticket to IT saying these accounts are not matching. So again, they might do reload the data, or they'll try to see what the issue is and find out. So this obviously takes a lot of time. What we thought, okay, why can't we build an LLM, or build a Gen AI solution which can does this work for you, like an assistant. So the behind the scenes, the technologies, again, we're using OpenAI. It's a again the LLM can be of our choice. It's for summarization reasons. It's a RAG model. So we build a robust knowledge base for the customer by explaining um, LLM, okay, what each account means, what is the relation between account to account, and then what is our accounting SAP system behind the scenes, what is our planning system, how the allocations and how the aggregations work between these systems, and then we create this solid knowledge base. Now, once it is tuned, it started understanding the business context, and then started generating this not generating, I would say, helping the users, okay, at the time of month end close, how to reconciling automatically. So for example, at the time of month end close, I want to reconcile my revenue accounts. I can simply say, can you reconcile revenue accounts? As you see, it it's completely live. So through the APIs, it queried the both SAP system, ledger systems, accounting systems, all these legacy systems, and then our planning system, and it came up with, okay, these are the differences, the revenue categories between the ERP system and the point of sale system. There's a difference, and it shows there's what is the analysis, and it is suggesting what are the next steps you can do, and you can see it is also suggesting Since the revenue accounts at the higher level have discrepancies, you want us to go to one level down and check it. At the same time, you can even say, rather than saying, can you reconcile revenue accounts, we can even say, can you reconcile revenue accounts at, can you reconcile revenue accounts at level 4 being the lowest level in the knowledge base, and explain the discrepancies. So with this, now we're asking our assistant to go to lowest level because it knows by name. When I say level 4, it knows by name. It can be anything. Now, as you see, this went into the lowest possible level at a level 4 between your ERP system and the point of sale systems. And it tried to come back and match the data at a transaction ID level. And it not only compared between the amounts in the ERP, amounts in the point of sale systems, what are the differences by account. It also gave the full mismatch reports. It says like, okay, these are the records which are found only in the ERP system but not in the point of sale systems. There are certain records which are only in the point of sale systems which are not in the ERP systems. You can download those transactions, and it explains the scenario too, like what are the IDs which present only in the ERP system, what might be the possible reasons. And it even suggests, okay, we may need to reload the data, or what are the potential steps you should take. For example, certain industries where if there is any mismatch or no between these systems due to data loads, they will adjust it in adjustment bucket for now and move on. That's the business process. So we can explain, or we can put those processes into the knowledge base. So the system will automatically, the AI, the assistant will automatically say, okay, this is a discrepancy because of the data load, and then you want us to adjust this into a particular account and move on. So it can even help you in closing the books for all these, whenever you have, these situations arise. The also generating the reports. So you can even generate, for example, can you generate PNL statement? And this is a very sample one. I mean, there's only few, a few records. I know a few thousands of records with sample hierarchy. But this hierarchy can be anything. Like, we can define a corporate hierarchy. We can explain, or we can get a knowledge base with the corporate hierarchy. And then the LLMs, or the Gen AI assist will start aggregating the database and hierarchy. It does the math. It can do all the calculations, whatever we need, and generate the reports automatically. It can also create context out of these reports as we need. Even using the agentic AI approach, we can even send these reports in automated format, by schedule format, like every day in the morning or whenever we require. Yeah. I'll hand it over to Mary.
Thanks for the demo, Karthik. That is great stuff. It's really nice to see it in action. It makes it real and tangible. So if you get excited by some of what you've heard or have seen Karthik share, there are more things to consider, right? There are some best practices for implementation that you want to think about as you go forward. So first of all, start small. If you have never done any sort of generative AI implementation before, start with something small. Start with a single use case that offers a quick return on investment. And we walked you through a few of those, but there may be others that apply in your scenario and that have low implementation complexity. Second, change management is so important with this, right? You want to involve the team members that you have that will be impacted by this. Get them involved early. They're going to have a lot of insight on things like, hey, you want to make sure you train it on these scenarios because these happen frequently, cause us a lot of time, right? emphasize how this is going to help them and enhance their job rather than replace their work. It's really going to reduce some of the mundane tasks from their job to free them up for some more meaningful work. But you've got to think carefully and thoroughly about change management and the people side of all of this. It's really important to ensure security. I think we've all started to hear some scenarios in the news where people didn't think carefully enough about the data that got put out into a model or models that they were using, not realizing how that AI vendor was going to use their data. So it's really important to verify that the AI vendor is compliant with financial data regulations, and you want to make sure there's proper governance in place. And finally, you want to make sure to look for solutions that have finance-specific capabilities. Some of the things that Karthik was demonstrating are very specific to finance and very specific to scenarios that finance professionals care about. Here's just a sample implementation timeline to start to get you thinking about the steps involved. This is very high level, but sitting down and really assessing the pain points that you and your team are encountering on a regular basis and where you feel that that non-value added activity is taking place, then put a strategy around that and make sure it's aligned with your financial objectives. Is it helping further where you want to go as a company, as a department, and really helping to add to your bottom line? Second, try it out on a few simple use cases, learn from it, prove it out, test it, gather some feedback, make sure it's working the way you need it to for your organization, and then scale it out, right? Don't start big, start small, try it, learn from it, crawl, walk, run. You've all heard those kind of phrases, but it really applies here because this is new to pretty much everybody. Even though it's been around a couple years now, we're all still learning. And it's really important to make sure that you have a successful experience versus one that's um, overly complex or difficult and doesn't add value to your organization at the end of the day. And once you've got something in place, doesn't mean that the work is done. You need to continually monitor the solution, making sure it's performing the way that you want, that it's giving you the outcome that you want. Keep refining for accuracy and efficiency. Bill, do you want to wrap it up for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Merri. A few key takeaways from our time today. I hope, first of all, that you found this to be a valuable spend of your time. I know all of your time is extremely valuable, but hopefully what you've learned today and what you'll continue to learn will only improve your success in your business. But first off, it's ready now. Today, if you're hearing AI everywhere, and we've polled our customers, we've seen polls from companies like Gartner and others. Most companies, and I would say 80 to 90%, if not more, are have AI on their roadmap. I've asked a number of our customers, they've said, yes, it's on our roadmap. And I ask them, what are you going to do? And they're like, we have no idea. But know that the technology is there. We can help you with that. We can help you figure out the what, but know that we can do this today. Second, and Merri just mentioned this, and this is this one hits home to me, managed change. Having been a customer of technology companies in the past, now being a partner, oftentimes change is the last thing that people think about, when in fact it should be the first thing that people think about. When you begin a project, whether it's AI or otherwise, have champions from the business be a part of the process, have them have ownership in it. Success requires the ability to change, and the human nature is to stay the status quo and to just do what you're doing because you know it well. Well, change is inevitable. Change is the new constant. So having those conversations early, often, and having support from leadership is critically important. And lastly, start small. Start with things that could add significant benefit, like, for example, the reconciliation example that Karthik gave. Think about how much time your people are going through to balance those books, to go through and validate that every account reconciles properly. How do they do that today, and how could they do that tomorrow? Very small, but very impactful. So all in all, AI is here to stay. I mean, some people say it's kind of scary. It reminds them of the Terminator, or it reminds them of other movies. But if used responsibly and safely, there's no end to the potential that this can do for any of our businesses. Next. Again, thank you all for attending today. I will open it up for Q&A. If you want to take yourselves off mute, that would be great. And we'll take a look also in the chat to see if there are any questions we can proactively answer, excuse me. I've been looking at some of them throughout the webinar. So please feel free to ask us anything.